Welcome, everyone. I have Coach Adina here, who is a graduate from our 100-hour teacher training, and she currently lives in Austria. I'm so excited to interview her because she has graduated and she's actually coming to our big workshop in London next weekend. We finally get to meet in person. Adina, tell us a bit about like who you are and how long you've been teaching yoga.
Okay. I live in Austria, but I'm originally from New York City. And I teach yoga. I teach Vinyasa flow yoga, and I've been teaching for quite a while. I've changed different styles of teaching. I also am a trained Pilates teacher. So in New York City, I had a private practice for about 10 years. Doing Pilates and also yoga. So I've been teaching yoga for a really long time. I guess about 20 years, maybe even a little bit longer. I'm just, trying to be silly about it. But yeah, maybe it's even longer than 20 years. I've been teaching movement, I would say, for about 25 years. Yeah.
That's so awesome. I really love working with experienced coaches and opening up the whole world of Steel Mace Vinyasa to you guys, because it's just a framework for how to condition asana. So I'd love to hear a bit about kind of where you were at prior to starting the 100-hour teacher training. What was your daily workload like? Just kind of walk us through like where you were at and what you were looking for.
Yeah. Well, I guess I was in a pretty rocky place when I first started to look at the training. Personally, I was going through a big change, splitting up with my ex-husband at the time. And so personally, I had a lot of breakage. And I think I was looking for an empowering practice, but not just an empowering practice, one where I could feel really embodied. I just felt like I needed to feel my essence a little bit more. And with my teaching, I was running around teaching lots of classes. Yeah, just the regular yoga teacher world. And then I had a couple of private clients, but I wasn't really making a lot of money from it. I was running around and putting a lot of energy out. And getting a little bit back in return. But of course, as a yoga teacher, you always have that reward that you feel like you're doing something good. And so I was really searching for something new, something different, something to help me feel myself better. I had a background in somatics. I studied somatics back in the early 2000s with Bonnie Bainbridge and Amy Matthews and Martha Eddy as well. And so I was really into this idea of how can we become more in touch with our bodies and still build strength at the same time, that we're building strength from the inside out and not just thinking about what's on the outside. And then I discovered Steel Mace Vinyasa, and it spoke to me in so many different ways. Not only did it look beautiful to me as a practice, it looked really empowering, and it had this somatics component, which was so intriguing to me, and so that's how it began. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people come to Steel Mace Vinyasa just for the mace because they think it looks really cool, and they don't often know that there is a layer of somatics integrated as you become a 100-hour certified coach. So I'd love if you could share a bit about the somatics that you learned from Bonnie and those other specialists compared to the somatics in application with Steel Mace, and kind of how those two compare and contrast.
Yeah. So my study of somatics taught me how to really have this felt sense of my body as I was moving, and have a felt sense of space that I'm moving through. And so it just changed at the time my level of connection with my body, but also this idea of feeling space as we're moving through it. And so I felt like I always wanted to give that to people, that they're not just moving, but they're moving in this really embodied way, and where you know yourself better, and you just feel more connected to your movement. And through Steel Mace Vinyasa, it's just very interesting because it incorporates, which I had never done before, a tool. And so pulling in those same components of embodiment, but now adding a tool to it, which became even more interesting to me, because then you can really feel the space that you're carving through by feeling this pathway of not just your body, but also the tool. And it was hard for me in the beginning, I must admit, to have such a strong practice and at the same time feel that somatic connection with myself. But through the study and through the cueing, I was really able to find it. And it was such a lovely marriage of the two, feeling kind of this ability to feel your strength, really, because, you know, adding load to your practice just gives you that sense of your strength, you know, your power. And at the same time, feeling kind of this soft connection to what's going on the inside. And then how to take that into kind of even a faster moving practice, you know, was very new to me. Because whenever I did somatics with Bonnie Bainbridge, it was all about, you know, really internalizing, moving slowly and feeling a lot. And so to flow with somatics, with a tool, and at times move harder or stronger or faster, was a whole new connection for me with the two. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing. It's always cool to hear insight from folks that have really studied this, and the fact that you began your somatic study in the early 2000s, that level of depth in the field. I think that we're just really fortunate to have you leading this and pioneering this in your region. So thank you again. My next question for you, Adina, is about kind of the nuts and bolts of Steel Mace Vinyasa. What were some of the big takeaways, like principles that you learned from the teacher training that really shifted how you teach and how you work with clients privately?
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, my teaching has totally transformed. And not just when I'm teaching with the Mace, but also just in yoga. And where to begin? Well, first of all, I feel that now I'm teaching people how to be a better mover, like how to become a better mover. And because ultimately, that's what a movement practice should be. It shouldn't be just, you know, can we find a pose and hold a pose for a very long time that has no maybe relationship to how we move in our world and in our life. And so my teaching became much more about that, like how are we moving? You know, how can we move more optimally? Where are we leaking power in our bodies? You know, how can we integrate, you know, our power and strength in a more balanced way? And this all comes out of the practice of Steel Mace Vinyasa. So I would say that that's one big component. Another one is how I'm cueing, you know, because of the simple system that you have taught in your program about how to cue, how to really use verb, body part, and direction, and it to be clear. And, you know, now I even listen to myself, you know, because everything is recorded. All my teaching is online and also live. And so I watch myself, and it's really interesting to watch myself, because sometimes I catch myself where I'm too wordy and it sounds too much. It's just, and then I catch myself when I'm really being more concise with my cueing, which you have taught in the program. And it's just so much more clear and to the point. And I also see, especially here in Austria, because English is their second language, most of them, And so clear cueing is like really important, and so that was another big element to how my teaching has changed. In terms of yoga, I really think about how I'm priming the body for movement, how I'm creating mobility a lot in the beginning to prime for transitions in yoga, but also to prime for yoga asana, for peak poses. So it's really shifted a lot, with and without the Mace, I would say. I'm sure there's more. Maybe I'll let you answer that, and then I'll.
Yeah, I mean, we could definitely riff off this for a while, because there are so many concepts that it's a springboard. Like, we're teaching these concepts, but really it evolves after you graduate and you start seeing it in the field with your clients and in your classes. I guess my next question, kind of on that same topic, would be around how you work with clients privately. Like, how has that shifted? Because you said you had a handful of clients prior to the teacher training, and now you work with them. So I guess, are there any things that you took away from the teacher training that make you show up differently as a private yoga coach?
Yes, for sure. Well, I construct programs now for all my clients, which I had never done before. I was never that organized. It was just someone came to me and I would sense what they need and what.
Oh yeah, I know the story. The intuitive teacher. It's very.
Yeah, exactly. And now I find myself, I meet with the person. I have, in the beginning, it's really not an interview, but just a moment to ask them questions about their lives and what their goals are. And from that first meeting, I construct a program. I construct a program that will run for 8 weeks or for 10 weeks. And then they pay up front for the whole program. And the whole program includes, this meeting that we have once a week, but it'll also include other things. And I just had this priced package now, which I had never done before. And it's lovely. And, I was really nervous about it here in Austria because it's a socialist country, and, people don't pay for healthcare and that type of stuff. So I find people are a little bit funny about, paying for private lessons and personal training. And it's just a different culture. And so I kind of, for a little while, was talking myself out of it, that no one's going to buy these packages, But actually, I've been very successful, and people are really, really into it. And they love this, this intimate work where I try to pull in mindset things as well, so it really becomes this holistic package. And so that has really, I've really gone far with that. And I think about packages like programs all the time now. Like, my mind is just ticking, what other kind of programs can I create? And I have a few that, I'm working on in the moment. One is a program that focuses on meditation, but it's run on the same idea of a program. And then I have another one that's for women who are either premenopausal or going through menopause, and creating a program around that. And so it's a brilliant idea, and it really helps, I think, yoga teachers especially who were like me in the beginning, just feeling it out, and, your intuition of how to work with someone, to really start to get organized and think about how to create, a whole program to sell. Yeah.
That's so awesome. I love to hear that you're finally seeing the fruits of your labor. Because a lot of times when coaches go through the teacher training, which you actually have to produce a 12-week signature program in order to graduate, and it's your first iteration, it's your first draft, and then you get to try it out on people, and then you get to tweak it. And I love that you're already thinking about these 2 other programs, because once you have the template, you can tweak things and change the middle part. You've got like the lifestyle part and the theory and the research up front. Then you have the middle chunk, which is all of the periodized program design that we teach you. And then, the mindset and journaling component at the end, however you want to lay that out. But then you can kind of take that template and then iterate on it and create different slightly different template for different populations. And I really love that you're going to be working with or making a program for women approaching menopause and that hormonal shift. It's so needed. And especially since strength training is one of the top things that we can do to rebalance hormones and also to keep our insulin sensitive tissue, our lean muscle mass. We want to keep that high so that we can prevent excessive weight gain as we age, and just keeping mood stabilized as well. The strength training piece is huge. So
Yeah.
applaud your efforts in endeavoring into that. And I look forward to seeing it. I'll have to do another follow-up call where you can walk us through it, because that's just such a great population to be working with. Yeah,
it's great. And I have a lot of women, that are premenopausal and menopausal. So it's highly desired, they need support, they need help, and they want alternative ways to work with their bodies, their minds, and their souls. And so I'm really looking forward to that as well. And just to say one more thing about the program design, I really felt that it has helped me to step into my worth and my value by creating these programs. And I guess I always thought I was a good yoga teacher, but I never really was stepping into my worth until recently. And that has a lot to do with the whole program, just the practice being so empowering. But then really seeing that I'm able to create a program that creates huge transformational shifts in people. And that has a lot of value, and to see people's their improvement and their changes, in self, their how they're transforming has been really telling, to help me really say, okay, this has value and I have value. And I think that's so important for us to be able to step into that. And a lot of yoga teachers, I hate to say it, it's we're good, we have good hearts. We have such good hearts, but I find that it's hard for us to really step into how much how valuable we really are, because we do invest a lot of time and effort and study and everything into the field. So I just wanted to put that in there because it's important. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm seeing that more and more, especially as we continue to broaden our outreach for the teacher training nationally. We're bringing in people that have never heard of Mace Vinyasa. Whereas when you came into it, it was people just from our mailing list for the first 2 years. And so now I'm just seeing the same conversation again and again, that the 200-hour yoga teacher training and even the 500-hour yoga teacher training are not teaching you the actual skills of movement as exercise prescription or movement prescription. And they're leaving out really big elements of lifestyle coaching, the daily meditation, like how do we track that? And how do we gather objective measurements? For us, we use a version of the functional movement screen too, and we teach yoga teachers how to assess mobility. And that stuff's never covered in a 200-hour or even a 500-hour. And so our goal truly is to raise the bar in movement education and flow education. And then there's that whole, flow science piece, neuroscience of flow. But we really want to arm you guys with a very large toolbox, apart from just all of the great yoga and strength and conditioning movements that you'll learn. There's these other elements of creating a transformational program that we want to expose you to, allow you to have a taste of it yourself. And then we want you to carry on this body of work and impact people. That kind of has a ripple effect all around the world. Oh, yeah. We're rippling here in Austria.
Yes, you are. So I guess my next question is around the workshops you've been facilitating. So I heard that you had 2 versions of your workshop. Version 1, tell us how many people came and what you did, and then tell us about the second iteration of that, because I think that's a really cool story of how you took feedback from that initial one, refined, and then revisited it. So walk us through.
Yeah, well, I just have to say that I first started to advertise for a workshop, I think it was last spring. And so we were still kind of in COVID, and out here, no one has heard of a steel mace, to tell you the truth. And so I created this workshop. I advertised for it, and not one person signed up.
What was it called? What was the first iteration called? Was it called Steel Mace Vinyasa?
I think in the beginning I added a steel mace vinyasa.
You have to hide the Steel Mace Vinyasa part, just like yoga, strength, and flow or something. Yeah.
Well, I realized that, people, especially here in Austria, they don't do so well with new things at first. It takes, I would say, just people in general, maybe in Europe in general, more than Americans, maybe. It takes a while for them to trust things. And so they need to hear it over and over and over again. And I realized I have to educate people actually on a lot. I have to educate people a lot in terms of what this is and how it can help them. And yeah. And so I started to do little videos here and there. I started to bring it into my yoga class and just be like, okay, we're going to just, play with this steel mace for a little while and like slowly expose them a little bit more and more to the practice. So then for my second workshop, I had 5 people sign up. And so I was like, okay, 5 people, here we go, And I think that first workshop was, it was just about tapping into the warrior archetype, what that means for us, not just in our kind of how we're going to feel with the mace, but what that really means in our heart and in our minds. And so I started off with a little bit of a meditation in that and some journal writing afterwards. And they loved it. So I had those 5 people and they were like, this is so cool, So that's how it started. And then I did another workshop and I had 9 people show up. So that was like a step up. And in this workshop, the theme was how to cultivate a relationship with power. And based on the idea that power is already inside us, that we don't need to find power somewhere outside of us, it's already there. And it's just a matter of connecting to it and cultivating a relationship to your power. And so that was really great. Like people, we also I did a small kind of very short meditation on it in the beginning, journal writing, so that they could really connect to what their personal relationship was and what their story is a little bit, and the story that they want to play with. And then we went into practice and they loved it. They were just amazed, after that. And that was a 2-hour workshop that I actually charged more money for. It was hard for me, but I just kind of stepped into it. And I had 9 people who paid. So I was totally happy about it. And then the last workshop I did had 30 people show up. So it just kind of jumped. And I didn't even have enough maces. I was like scrounging for things, to give people. And so, and in that last one, it was simply about strength. I just really wanted to narrow it down to, strength, how we find strength, inner strength, outer strength, how we use the mace, how we can use the floor in our movements to find strength. And then people were really inspired again. They were just like moved. And, I just would educate them. I just felt like I kept having to put in some things of the why behind this practice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I had no idea there was 4. I thought there was just 2, but that's so cool.
Yeah.
To see the progression
Well,
of
the first
0 to 30.
one doesn't really count, because no one registered.
You tried. I mean, I see too the pattern too of the more simple you get with the language, like that last one was just about strength. I think titling workshops is really important. And we actually stopped creating weird names for our teacher trainings and our retreats. It's just like 5-day training retreat, Steel Mace Club staff. It's just simple.
And, you know, the work is so profound that maybe it needs that simplicity sometimes. And then you can, you know, it's just like teaching, like the yoga teachings. You don't want to give people the deepest stuff right in the beginning because it's too much, you know, but starting and then opening the window a little bit more and more to the deeper stuff. I think that makes a lot of sense. And so now I've started my first cohort, a 10-week program. And it's called Empower. And it's also based on this idea that power is inside us. And it's all about embodying power, like coming into connection with our power and embodying that. I love the word empower because it's like embody. Yeah. So, and I decided to run this program with the themes of the elements. And so every module is associated with a different element in the universe. And so we started with earth, and that was closed hip conditioning, all heave, some surge, but heave, like really pushing away from earth and how we can really start to ground our strength from the bottom up. And then we go into water. And so water is when we start to open our hips more into open hip conditioning, and we feel more expansive in our movements. And so, you know, each one runs through an element. Right now we're in air. And and it's been really, actually, this has been a phenomenal experience to see a group of people that I meet with 2 times a week. I created the whole program on Teachable as well. So on Teachable, they follow the modules on their own. And in that, they have mobility, they have core sequences, they have meditations. I created like 10-minute meditations along with it with some pranayama. And so they have all this stuff that they can work with on their own. I created a manual. I wish I brought it because it's really beautiful. I created a really nice manual for the program and journal prompts. And so every week they just follow the order of things. And then we meet twice a week and we do still Mace Vinyasa. So we meet for the more intense days. And they are so strong right now. It's so amazing to see. And a few of them have, you know, a lot of them are not even taking yoga classes. They're just, you know, focusing on this because it's such a, you know, big program. But a couple of them have been taking yoga classes alongside, and they are just remarking on how their bodies are just so much strong in asana, you know, like it's just transformed their whole practice. And so in that sense, it's been really rewarding to see their shift, their changes. Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I didn't know that you put your stuff on Teachable. That makes me so happy because that's a big part of what we want you guys to do is build your body of work. Like this is a springboard, and I was mentored by a lot of different people that helped me build my body of work. And so I think if I can show you how we do it, you guys can take and iterate on it and create your own body of work. And I think the correlation of stepping into our worth and building our tangible body of work, they're so interconnected. The shifts happen when you produce the manual, which you're required to do in the teacher training. We don't require you guys to create a Teachable course. You went above and beyond, and I know you continued to train with FlowShala for several months after. But that's great that you're able to synthesize those two, because it is giving somebody a more robust experience, and they perceive that you're with them every day. And they're really engaged in the learning. And I think, you know, a big tenet of the teacher training is like, we want people to transition from just being a yoga teacher or yoga instructor to a movement educator, teaching them why, teaching the lifestyle, like keeping them accountable for these small changes of meditation and journaling daily. So great work. You are just rocking it, Adina.
Yeah, it's been a lot of work, but I really have, you know, and, you know, when you first asked me to make a program in the course, I always look back to that moment where I felt like I didn't know how to do it. You know, it was really a challenge for me to even, you know, organize kind of my ideas like that. And to see that that the teachable program that I created now came from that first place. And even though it was challenging, everyone, that I worked with in the program with you has been so supportive that it really helped to have you all there in that moment where it was challenging to try to even brainstorm and to think about these things of how to create a program, how to do it week by week, how to write it down, how to create a manual. And so now I have this teachable program, and it's beautiful. Like, the teachable program to me is just like, I just look at it and I'm like, I just pat myself in the back because I love it. I think it's just beautiful work, and so there were a lot of stepping stones along the way that could not have manifested if it weren't for the Steel Mace Vinyasa training. Yeah.
Well, thank you for embodying what it means to truly build your body of work. And I'm sure this is one of many courses. I envision the course that the manual that you create for women approaching menopause, that there'll be an even more specific and curated course for that population too. And I just can't wait to see it. It's awesome. Yeah, as you guys can probably see, I get really excited for my student success because I want you guys to iterate on this, to take this work forward. Like, I don't want to teach it forever. I want everyone to pass it on. And I think that nobody owns movement. Like, I don't own Steel Mace Vinyasa. Yes, I've created that body of work, but movement is universal. And we can take these ancient practices, which were derived from the Indian clubs and the work with the Gata and classical asana, and then kinesiology yoga. It's like a blend of these different modalities, and we can take this fusion and we can invent our own new exercises too, but it's the principles and the theory and the organization and the structure that allow you guys to iterate on it in a way that makes sense from like a kinesiology perspective. So great work. All right. Let's see. I had one other question about training with Flowshala. So you continued on training with Coach Adina for a while after your teacher training. I do encourage teachers in training that want to really step it up in their delivery of private one-on-one to work with a coach private one-on-one. Can you tell us a bit about that experience with Coach Adina, and what were some of the things that you covered post teacher training that she allowed you to kind of tie up loose ends? Or what was that experience like?
It was a really great experience, actually, because I had this feeling of what it's like to really be coached, not just from the movement standpoint, but from the mindset standpoint, what's going on in my heart, and how from my mind and my heart, how this can inform our movement practice and be worked with through a movement practice. And it's one thing to learn it in the program. It's a total other thing to experience it. And those sessions have really informed how I work with people, how I want to work with people privately, one-on-one. Everyone should be coached one-on-one. It's really important, it's just super important. And I came in, she wanted to know what my goals were, and I came in with some very specific things. I really wanted to connect the dots to yoga, because in the program, we learn lots of things about how you could work, not just with yoga, but with anyone, helping them to be better movers and strengthen their bodies using the tool, the Mace. And so I really wanted to focus on yoga, and a little bit of advanced work, a little bit of some creative flow work. I wanted to go deeper into flow. So I had some specific desires, and so it was great, and you can't have that when you go to a class, obviously, you can't have those specific desires met when you take a class. And as you get deeper into the practice, your desires become more specific of what you want, as you get a little bit more, on intermediate level. And so, so that was really met. And I felt Reina's amazing. You know, she was really able to like, we always started with closing our eyes. And I love this, like just closing the eyes and going and just seeing what's there, you know, what's going on today. And she was always able to thread, even if she had planned something before, she was always able to thread what I had said a little bit throughout the practice. You know, it was a really nice skill of threading, you know, what had came from my heart into what she was doing with me on that day. And that is something I strive for when I work with clients, that I'm not just coming in with an agenda, but I'm meeting them where they are in that given moment. Yeah.
Yeah, I think being a private coach, a private yoga coach, private movement educator is very much about deep listening. And sometimes our clients arrive not really sure of what their goals were. In this instance, you knew your goals, but many times clients just arrive and they know they need to change something, and you have to really practice deep listening to understand their goals and then translate that into the elements of program design, whether it be it more somatic felt sense training, more kinesiology of yoga, whether it's, you know, mindset work of catching inner critic, if the inner critic's going wild, and how can we, you know, recognize the sympathetic nervous system arousal and have different tools for stress reduction. So I think the fact that you went through private one-on-one coaching is probably a big reason why you're fast tracking and you're so successful. Obviously, you have 20 years experience too, but tying up those loose ends with a private coach. I always ask people who are on interviews doing program design strategy calls with me to enter the training. I always think of, like, if we want to charge a premium price for our coaching, but we've never invested in ourselves as a premium client, how can we expect our clients to pay premium rates if we're not willing to invest in ourselves? I think the energy exchange there is like, you invested in your own personal growth and now you have that tool to give back to others.
Yeah. And my after I did the training, that's my private clientele just got, you know, was more. It just happened, you know, because I saw what it was, you know, I had this feeling of it. And it helped me to move through some of my own resistances. And then there were the private clients. Like, it just happened that way. So I think it's really, really important. Yeah.
Yeah, we attract our ideal clients when we are at a higher vibrational frequency, and you did the inner work on yourself and you kept showing up and you were diligent with that. And then when you're ready, the students appear. When the teacher's ready, the students appear.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
All right. Yeah. Well, my final question, what would you tell someone that was on the fence? Because a lot of people are on the fence about signing up for the teacher training. They're wondering, you know, is it the right time? Will I have enough time? Can I do it? What would you tell somebody that's on the fence? They're like just about to step in and they don't quite know if they should. What would you tell them?
I would tell them to definitely do it. And in terms of time, you're like, in the beginning, there's so much material, but I felt like I couldn't put it down. Like, I just wanted to keep going and learning more. And I created the time because I was so inspired by the work. And so time was very quickly not an issue anymore. Because when you're interested in something and you know that it's feeding you in the way that you need it, you're just creating the time. It's just becomes very important to you. And because I feel I am able to step into my value and my worth, and it's just the beginning, I find, you know, with expanding on this body of work, it's totally worth the financial investment because the money will come back. Yeah. And it'll come back much more than where you were before. And I can say that from my personal experience, that it has just opened up my horizon to something fuller, something, you know, new for myself. It's just a huge shift for me. So if you're on the fence, just jump over the fence. go over to the other side and quickly just do it, because it's worth the time, worth the money, worth the energy that you're going to put in. And it's just, it just gives you a completely fresh sense of yourself. And yeah, so that's what I would say.
It's been such a pleasure just talking to you now a year plus later, because I do remember our first initial calls, and I remember where you're at and just seeing you so embodied and so in your power. And like you said, it's just the beginning. Like, this is just year one of implementing this new style of teaching and really finding your movement coaching and movement educator voice and making it your own in this new, really transformational way. So where can we find you on Instagram and or website? Fill us in on any upcoming stuff you got going on, just so people can find your work and follow you.
Yeah, so I'm trying to create a platform, an online shop as well. So my website is called innerflowstudio.org, and I'm creating an online shop because I've gotten really into also RAD Roller equipment, and they don't sell it out here in Austria. And so I have studied more of it since the program. Summer, you offer like a ton of knowledge on RAD Roller. And so I've gone a little bit deeper into it. And so I would like to start selling it along with like some other tools, yoga tools and props and stuff. And so it's both an online shop, and then it's also a place where any constructed program I have will be on the website to buy. And then also ongoing classes that I'm teaching both live and online. I am going to be teaching a workshop in Austria, if you're around. And it's a mobility and flow workshop. And it's just a conversation with other yoga teachers of how we can incorporate mobility and why we should incorporate mobility into a yoga practice and in our teaching. And then also just a conversation of what flow really is, because it's a much overused term. And so we're going to dive into that conversation about, really what flow is. And just even thinking in the end about creative sequencing, how we can use mobility and this idea of flow and create from it. Yeah.
And where will that be held and what dates? If you have them.
Yeah. That's going to be at Yoga Centrum Mödling, which is where I teach a lot. And it's where I'm doing Empower, the program in Stillmace Vinyasa. And it's the weekend of, I believe it's April 29th and 30th. And it's mainly for yoga teachers. I would say it would be the most interesting for yoga teachers, but other movement educators could be there as well. Yeah.
Fabulous. And your Instagram, what's your personal Instagram so we can follow you there and potentially send you a DM?
Yeah, I'm not so big on Instagram right now.
Okay.
But I have my Instagram, Adina of NYC at yahoo.com. And then you can look out for Inner Flow Studio, because I will probably build up more in the next weeks and months. Yeah.
Well, it's been such a pleasure just hearing how you've been implementing all these things, and it seems that you've really got a handle on it. I think a lot of times it can feel really overwhelming to have the online stuff and the workshop and the private clientele, but I think you're really embodying getting organized and having these different segments of your service-based business. And I'm just really proud of you and excited for how you're going to continue to build this body of work. And I can't wait to see you in London next weekend.
I'm so excited because this is like, I think I'm going to cry because studying with you all that time, and then, finally getting to meet you and Mark, and then just being in this lovely practice, for a weekend, on top of that, going away from my children it, which I haven't done. Like, I don't even think I've ever done it, all by myself, going to London. It's going to be very healing for me. So
yeah, and you get to just be a student. It's not a teacher training. It's just come and be trained and just indulge. It's your hero's journey to take this time to connect with other like-minded people and train and refine. It's all about refinement, and it will bring a lot of things together, I'm sure.
I'm so excited.
Well, thanks again, Adina. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.